Cool. All right. So we're here for the first episode. Mr. Dean DeCarlo from Mission Disrupt.
Honored for the first episode.
You want to tell the people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, Dean DeCarlo, president of Mission Disrupt, started the company probably about 6-7 years ago. And essentially, we're a marketing agency that does two things, really. I'm going to avoid the tapping. We specialize in two areas. It's paid media management. So when I say that, I mean, managing TikTok ads, Facebook ads, Google ads. A company has an ad spend and they want to figure out where to put that money. That's what my team does. And then we manage that on a monthly basis. And then the second thing is user experience design, which is, it's like web design development, it is, but we kind of take it to a different level with some of the tech that we're actually using to kind of disrupt the space and give companies more value in terms of how our services are being applied to their strategies or the strategies that we're creating for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you used the buzzword disrupt there.
Yeah.
The company is Mission Disrupt.
Yeah.
This is the Disrupting Long Island podcast. How does the technology that you're using actually disrupt the status quo here in Long Island, specifically in the digital marketing space?
Yeah. So again, what I'm going to do is I'll take it down to like the two areas that we work in. So for user experience, anybody can design a really pretty site, but what my clients want is performance out of those sites. So like a very typical question is like, this is our average order volume. Let's say it's $50. How do we get it to $65? And then what we do is we start solving, usually that's a design, it's a design strategy. It's like, how do we get these people to add more items to their cart? How do we make it more appealing? So one of the pieces of technology that we use is first, as a marketer, I want to figure out like, what is causing them not to add things? Like, what's the friction? Like, why aren't they adding the larger, let's say it's a value pack over like a single pack? So the technology that we have, it allows us to do like screen recordings anonymously. And so it actually shows us where the session of the user. And what you can get a lot of great information out of that. So like, for instance, like we could see that, maybe there's actually a bug in the site and every time they click on the upgrade, it's not working.
So you're physically tracking where the mouse is on the screen?
Yeah. So we have two kind of pieces of technology that it's one is a screen is like a heat map.
Okay.
So just like they use in retailers, like retailers, what they actually do is they have like these areas in their store. They know the most visited aisles by deploying these heat maps, and the most visited aisles will be like red. Oh, sorry. It'll be like a red indicator, and the aisles that aren't visited the most, they're kind of like blue. Mm-hmm. And that's what it looks like on a map. So like they'll have a map of the whole thing. So we do the same thing. We take a map of the website, of the web page, and you can actually see red is where like the hottest portions of like where the scroll will be or where the users are clicking, and blue will be like cold, like no one's going there. And what you can do with that information is, and stores do it all the time, right? Like when you go into Target, you'll go in there for 2 years. You'll know where all the food is. 2 years later, they completely shift around the store. It's completely intentional. It's to make you rediscover different products. We take the same ideas there, and now we bring it to the web. So the heat mapping does that, and then the screen recordings actually lets us figure out the why. Mm-hmm. Because like when you're thinking about it from an analytics standpoint, you might see like, hey, we're not getting a lot of conversions on our double pack. Why? Like you don't know the why though. You just know that that's what's happening. Why? Screen recordings will tell you why. Well, actually, because on mobile, the button's being blocked. All right, so now that needs to be redesigned. Or on desktop, it's the frequently purchased or upgrade your product. It's actually, they have to scroll down, and users aren't going to scroll down based on the heat map that we saw. So those are all things that we're able to track for the clients and then say, hey, here's a smarter way to look at the design. So that's really how we're disrupting. I think a lot of companies just, especially now with the last 2 years in the pandemic, everybody rushed into e-commerce. Mm-hmm. The companies that are doing it really well, they're deploying these UX strategies and actually prioritizing that to create more value for their company.
That's pretty wild. So that's like something that's very different about your agency versus others specifically out here on Long Island?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that piece of technology, it's definitely available for other agencies to use, but I think instead of us saying we're full service, we don't take that route. We do it really well. We do UX very well, and we do paid media very well. And we stick in those lanes, and we're used to doing it all the time. So we're able to deliver more value. And I think a lot of firms try to do the whole full service, and maybe they can, maybe they have 50 people. But, if you have 5, 10, 15 people, I think it's really hard to sell that bill. So for us, it's just we keep with what we're great at, and we're focusing on delivering value.
That's a differentiator across the board is, you said the technology is available for people to use, but if you don't know how to use it, if you're not an expert at taking, that technology and implementing it and using it to the best of its ability,
Yeah. And we're upfront about like what we're good at and what we're not good at. And we have partners, right? For right. Like you guys are a partner too. So it's like, we have partners for if we don't feel like we can do it well, we're going to bring in someone else. Like we had an e-commerce client where we do a ton of work for, and they're getting ready to launch in Lowe's, and their labels were terrible. The product was extremely good. It's well known in the marketplace, but the labels were just god awful. And I told them, I'm like, listen, if you want to get taken seriously by Lowe's, like you should really look at this. Like if your product's going to be national, like you want us to have a brand, and they wanted us to do it. And yes, a UX designer could do packaging, but it's very different, right? So I actually had a partner who did labels for like Colgate back in the day, or on the corporate level, and we just handed that off to them. They did a great job. Like they went to the stores and they looked at what competitors would be on the shelf, all things that I never would have thought we could have done, right? And we could have sold it, but I think it speaks more to our value that's saying like, let's bring in someone who's going to be better than us. Yeah. And they hit it out of the park, and it's amazing. They did a great job.
That could bring it back to how we kind of met in the first place. We started working together through StatFest, the music festival that I co-produced, and you did our web design and all of that. But when it came time to do the graphics and actually do the moving pieces and the elements that are the illustrations that are going on the website, you said, hey, we have people in house who can do this, but I think you should go for, you actually recommended a specific person who we still work with to this day.
Yeah,
Dom, who's awesome. So I think that is a unique value that you guys.
Yeah, I think people also come to us like we're not the shop. We're not a volume shop, right? Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to do 300 websites a year. We're trying to do, I don't know, like maybe 24 sites a year. Nothing crazy, even if that. Like that's kind of a lot. We tend to do like larger project size, but when we're working on a project, we want to make it special. So in the case of StatFest, it was more of like, we need something that like the guys next door are not going to have. So when we thought about like what the values of StatFest was, it had to do with local artists and the vision. Like I had, when I was working with my team at the time, like I said, like what I'd really like is for us to have like illustrations in here. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I would like to find a local artist that can bring this to life, and then my team can animate everything in.
Yeah, you guys made it. If you go check out the website statfest.live, which Dean and his team created, that like all the illustrations that you're talking about are like moving on the page.
Yeah. So like our team, like we still had to handle all the code and then the concepts to make all of that move and bring it to life. But like we knew to get it to that level, we needed an illustrator. So it was like the perfect fit. We're like, hey, like if we get a local artist, it's going to fit the StatFest brand well. It's going to push our vision forward. And ultimately, it's going to help sell more tickets because, like, at the time, you guys were going on your second festival, and the idea was, like, let's legitimize this. Mm-hmm. When you go on StatFest site now, it's so up there with Governor's Ball and all these other sites. I actually think it's better than like Governor's Ball site. I look at it. Yeah, it's nice pictures.
When we looked at those, the competitors or the people that we aspire to be, or the festivals that we aspire to be in the future, that was one of the things is like none of these major festivals have a kick-ass website.
No.
It's because they announce their lineup and they sell.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit different. I think for you guys too, like you were newer into the space, so it's like again, legitimizing it as much as possible, and people believe what they see.
Building a brand. It's exactly. Kind of like a fake it till you make it type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, you guys we
invested in it.
Yeah, I have to say, you guys did it right. There was no faking it. It was just every time kicking it up a notch. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
If you look at the website, if you had seen the website that we had prior, it was just like a Squarespace website.
Yeah.
It was awful. Like that would be something that would deter people from purchasing a ticket. So like
I think so.
Legitimizing that brand was huge.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was fun.
Do you work with a lot of like startup brands like that, or are you mostly working with established? Like
we try to focus on more medium to large brands now. For StatFest, that was totally like, I just vibed with you guys so well that I was like, I need to be part of this in some way.
And I think the expectation was also set. Like that's working with clients and on the video production side, setting expectation is absolutely like the key. I mean, probably for all businesses, it's setting that expectation. Like, right? You turned to us and didn't say like, all right, I'm going to make you this website. Now you're going to be Bonnaroo.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, but we understand what we're doing here.
Yeah, exactly. It was a collaborative effort, and but yeah. So I think most of the brands we're working with are medium to large size. I would say we can work with smaller brands. I think that some of the tech that we have on the marketing side is a little bit too advanced for really small budgets. So I think it's hard because the scale, like the AI product that we have for paid media, we need like at least $10,000 a month in spend. So you're not going to typically have a company that's doing $500,000 spending that much,
Although could argue they should.
Yeah. Depends on where they're at.
Yeah.
Where the scale is, But if they're making 2, 3, 4 million, I mean, we could probably work with a company like that. But I think overall, like what I'm targeting is like that medium to large. If they're, in the Long Island region, they have 4 or 5 locations. Like we have Consumers Kitchen and Kitchen and Bath, right? So we represent them, Men on the Move. They're multi-location places. They're regional. They're big names on Long Island. So that's the companies that we're really helping and can really benefit from us because they're mature and they're looking to keep that edge. So when there's a company that's looking to keep that edge, that's where my team is really well suited because one, we're hands-on. We're not an agency of 50 people. We're an agency of like between 5 and 7, depending on the day. And then, the other thing is we have the technology, right? So the AI technology, not many agencies can say that they have that. And then the second thing or the third thing really is it's the hands-on experience, it's the technology, and then it's just that expertise that we've been doing this for the last, my team is actually, they're older than me. So like collectively, they have like 10, 15 years experience. And then my experience with the 7 years of just being in the trenches and marketing. So yeah, I think we bring that to the table, and it's just, it helps companies really be on the edge, in that space.
Tell us a little bit about how you got started. What brought you into this field?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be a marketer. The story I always tell is that I went to Comac High School. I played left and right bench for the football team. So like it was pretty obvious to me that I wasn't going to like be an athlete or anything like that in college. So I was kind of looking for that next thing, and it was something I started obsessing over like pretty early on in high school because I was like, I got to figure my life out. They're forcing you to pick a college that you have to spend all this money for. So one thing that always intrigued me was when you'd go into the supermarket with your parents, like why did my mom buy Tide over store brand or Tide over Gain or whatever it is? So I just thought that was really interesting. And at the end of the day, taking like a business class in high school, I realized it was just marketing, like at the most basic level, right? Like somebody was convincing us that brand was more valuable. It's the same thing, right? Tide, Gain, Target brand, like it really is. It's the same solution. There's
it's nothing. Soap.
Yeah, it's just soap, right? So I was one of the lucky ones that when I went to college, like I hit the ground running. I knew what I wanted to do, and there was advantage in that because the advantage was I got to get more experience day one.
Yeah, I'd say that's rare. Like
it's
in high school and even into college, knowing really what you want to do
and then still liking it too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of times like people think, and which is fine. Like that's normal. Like you pick what you think you want to do, and then you realize, oh wait, it's not what I want to do. So
I had that experience. I went to school to study chemical engineering.
Oh wow, and that's dramatically
right.
Different.
It's a complete 180.
Right.
So I started in engineering school, and then I ended up in the communications college.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I stayed at the same school.
That's cool. Well, see, you got lucky there then.
Yeah.
Because most people transfer out, so the fact that you could stay, that's great.
It was but like I don't know many people I knew a handful of people that like went into college loving what they did and knowing what they wanted to do.
Yes.
And those people like work for NASA now because they were in like those early classes
Right,
with me.
right.
And I'm like, oh my God.
That's crazy.
But yeah, I think that's a rare thing, especially now when there's so much out there, you're seeing so much, and then to just like fall into like know exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
And fall into it and still hit the ground running afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
So you went to, sorry to cut you off there.
SUNY Albany.
Albany, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I know that because when I came out of school, I interned for an organization.
Yes.
That the owner of that organization went to Albany also, and that's kind of like one of your influences.
Yeah, Damien, from Situation. Yeah, so I mean, like he'd probably, I don't even think he'd even remember me if he saw this, but
I don't think he'd remember me either. And I worked at his company.
Right, it is a pretty large agency, right?
Yeah, I think they're over 100 people now.
Yeah, so he let me like shadow
Europe.
him too. Like when I was really trying to figure out everything after college, like he's like, come by for the day, and he had like a half-day conversation with me, which was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, it was a big advantage because then I was able to line up things like get really good internships. Like I got into a marketing program called Marketing Edge, which unfortunately is no longer around. But what they used to do is they used to take like 50 kids from around the United States and they'd bring them to a sponsor's, like they call campus, which when I say campus, I mean like a corporate campus. So that year was Google. So we all got flown out to Google and we got to stay there for like a week-long conference and just kind of like learn from them, which was great because we got to be there and like kind of ask some questions about marketing. And then afterwards, they placed us in a internship, which was 1-800-Flowers. I was a web analyst. So, decent, really, really great experience.
Large Long Island company. Started as like a mom and pop shop.
Yeah. And then they expanded and they've kind of made all the right moves to make that grow. It's great people there too. So yeah, I mean, by the time I got to my senior year, just like a lot had happened and I was just like ready to take a break on top of like part-time jobs and all that. So I decided to freelance and it was really just for beer money. Like I made $300 a month for my first client and I was just like, I'm college rich. Like this is great. $1 beers. It was easy to do. Like, so I did that. And then I got to the graduation and it was like, hey, like, why not try to like just be a freelancer permanent? And that led to the agency that it is today. So that's how it started.
That's pretty amazing. So if there's anyone out there who is interested in working with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's the best place. We post a ton. If you just type in Dean DeCarlo, you'll see we're from Mission Disrupt, and then you'll probably see like a lot of my posts. So that's the easiest way to get into contact with me.
Sweet. Well, thanks for being our first guest on the podcast. Yeah. I'm interested to see where this thing goes, and I'm sure you'll be back on because you're a partner in this thing.
Yeah, we'll be here. We'll be here for sure. Thanks, Steve.
Sweet. Thanks, man.
Perfect.